Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Marriage Matters. This is the show where we talk about everything marriage and relationships.
Yes.
And yes, we do give you tips and tricks on how to have a successful marriage. You got anything to add to that?
No, you did great.
Tips and tricks. Tips and tricks.
I'm kind of that, Yeah.
Tips and tricks.
So I'll let you have it.
All right, tips and tricks. So we're going to give you some tips and tricks. So this is our second week with our illustrious guest. Who's that? Charles and Jan Thomas. We had a great time.
Top that word.
That's what they used to say back in Baptist church I was growing up.
Right.
Illustrious guest.
Yeah.
The bishop. Charles.
Oh my God.
Or is it R?
Yeah.
R. Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you.
And First Lady.
And First Lady, prophetess, missionary, Jan Thomas.
She lay hands on you and knock you out.
Hey, you know what I'm saying? So
I know that's what happens to me.
I love it.
Well, he just laid in the spirit. He'd be all right. He'd be all right.
Put a cold towel on his face.
Right.
Yeah, put a cold towel on his face. He'd be all right. So, but no, we had a great time last week just talking about, marriage. And so we're right back at it this week. And so just kind of the recap, just kind of tell us again, how long you guys been married, family, just real briefly, then we'll get into some questions for
Yeah, so I'm Charles Thomas, my wife. Beautiful, lovely, sexy, adorable wife, Jan Thomas. We've been married for 20 years.
20 years.
Married July 4th. Picked that date specifically so that I wouldn't forget.
That's correct.
We have two daughters. Our oldest is Mariah Charnel Thomas, and our youngest is Charlie Rose.
That's great. Yes. And I know this is a rarity, but our parents were still married. His mom and dad have been married, 54 or so years?
54, 55 years.
Wow.
Yes, and my parents were married 50 years.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a legacy.
So you guys have great examples, which that's so rare nowadays.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we say we've been married for 18 years, people are like, wow,
I know.
18 years.
I know.
Right.
I know.
Because, 5 years is that's kind of like
Right.
the average nowadays,
Yes.
It's kind of like changing jobs now.
Yeah, it's like,
Just
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But our goal with this show is to give you the tools that you don't have to change every
That's
5
right.
years.
That's right.
That you can, reach the 50-year
Yeah.
50-year mark. So, with that being said, you got any questions you want to ask?
I do. I have a couple that we didn't get to ask in the last show. So the first
Should I be
one
worried?
is. I think you got it. Y'all did so well last time.
Okay.
I'm not worried at all. What's something you wish someone would have told you before getting married that you kind of had to learn along the way?
That's a good one.
That is a
That
good
is a
one.
real good one. Yeah. You want to take that first? Or?
That there would be days like this. Like, okay, so for example, my parents being married a long time. My brother is 7 years older than me. So he saw a completely different set of parents, basically, than what I saw. So by the time I came along, they had learned to behave, and so they, I knew when they would be upset. They would do, that's okay. They would do, a little silent treatment sometimes. That's not necessarily healthy either. But, they weren't throwing pots and pans and rolling on the floor. So, but I think it's good for your kids to know in a healthy way when you disagree. And to be able to demonstrate how to work through it.
That's good.
That you don't have to put your hands on each other.
That's
You
right.
don't
That's
have to
good.
throw things. And, and even if you feel like you get into that point, because we're supposed to be adults and fully in control of ourselves, if you need to remove yourself for a few minutes and go cool off, it's okay to say that too.
Yeah.
So, and another thing I think with us growing up, having cable, which was a big old thing growing up, cable TV. Well, a lot of times you learn, or what you think marriage is from what you saw on TV.
Yeah.
Can I tell y'all that is scripted?
Right.
Like
It
it takes months to film and these shows, and everybody's putting on their best faces every day for for the camera.
It's cuts and
It's,
breaks.
it's
Yeah.
cuts
Right.
and breaks.
Yeah.
And so, and it's not like that when you're married.
Right.
There's going to be some days where you don't feel 100%.
Correct.
You know, and so they always say marriage is 50-50. It's 100-100.
It's 100,
You try to
100,
give
yes.
your best to your spouse every day. And so there's a reason why you made the decision to walk up the aisle and say those vows to each other. And sometimes you got to remind yourself, whatever that reason or reasons were, that's also the same reasons that you should fight to want to stay together. And
Yeah.
you should never stop dating your spouse also.
That's
You
true.
know, that's, yeah.
Yeah, this is
Very
not the
good stuff.
Cosby Show, right?
It's not the
Yeah,
Cosby
you know what?
Show.
I say this all the time, and growing up, I always looked at the Cosbys as the
Yeah.
epitome of what.
See?
And it's the same. I had to
Couple
learn
of
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's scripted, bro.
Yeah.
It's
You know,
scripted.
and it's not.
It's
You know, and even though.
It's more like Good Times up in here. You know?
Yeah.
It's George and Wheezy,
Oh,
right?
yeah. And that's more. But even that, and you know what I'm saying. So we can't. And here's the other thing I always say too, when it comes to kind of looking to, it's like there is no marriage is not cookie cutter.
Right.
So I can't see Charles doing something and be like, oh man, I'm gonna do that.
Right.
Right.
It may or may not work for
That's
us.
right. That's
You get
right.
what I'm saying? So
right.
just
That's right.
because it worked for the Cosby doesn't necessarily mean
That's right.
that
That's
it's so.
right.
So yeah, that's good. So,
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So I guess to answer your question, I wish someone would have told me that being the man doesn't mean that I get my way.
That's so
You know?
good.
That is good.
Yeah, I grew up thinking that you know, being the man or being the husband was going to mean that you know, my wife's going to be submissive in the way that we grew up thinking
Sure.
that submission meant, and that you know, I'm going to run the house. You know, well, it's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely wrong. You know, the only thing I really run is the vacuum cleaner, wash it, dry it.
Stop it.
I've really had to learn along the way the true biblical definition
Yeah.
of submission.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that she yields everything about herself
Correct.
to cater to my needs.
Right.
It means that I yield everything about myself to cater to my family.
Yeah.
You know?
That's right.
My dad told me that being married is kind of like, you know, the husband being the foundation of a house. And it's like everything sits on that foundation. That foundation is hardly ever seen, you know, but it supports everything and it keeps everything together. So,
Yeah.
you know, I wish I would have learned that a little bit earlier on,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. There was I saw this the book. It was one of John Maxwell's books. I can't remember how to win and influence people, maybe something like that. But anyway, he talks about leadership and he says, you know, true leadership, or when you are a very effective leader, you don't have to make people do things for you. They want to do
Yeah,
things.
that's right.
And I think when you apply that to your marriage, it's like if you have to make your wife submit, then you're not doing a very good job
Right.
as a leader.
Right.
You know, and that's where you know, it feels so good to have a wife that wants to support and not feels like she has to support.
Right,
you know?
right. Because she gets that from first seeing you support.
Yeah, and then you know what? A lot of times I ask guys that when they say, "Well, she won't submit to me," I always ask, "Well, who are you submitted
Yeah.
to?"
Right,
Yeah.
right.
You know, and the other thing I ask about that is, you know, the word submission is submission.
Right.
It's under a mission. So I'm like, well, what's the vision
Right.
that you have for your
Right.
family?
Right.
What,
That's
you know, she's not, and I say this, you know, when you look at just the anatomy of a man and a woman is designed to take a man's seed and produce that. And so I always tell men this, that if you don't want to see it, don't tell your wife.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
Because there's been some instances like where I'll just be thinking about some things, and I always, like a couple of months ago, I think I was off and everybody was off, and I was just like, you know, we ought to do like a family fun day or something. I woke up the next morning. This girl had planned the trip down to the Gulf. I'm like, whoa,
miles
no!
away. Hey,
I was like,
let's go.
I was just thinking, you know. And
Thinking
so,
aloud.
yeah, but it's like when you release those words, it's like they go to work, and it's like, boom, let's do that. And you know, we were talking earlier before the show, like I'm a planner, you know, and I want to plan and strategize, and
Right.
so a lot of times I don't release things until I'm ready to move on them, because I know that when I say it, she's gonna be like, okay, boom, let's
I'm
go.
ready to make it happen.
Let's go.
Yeah,
And
let's
so
make it happen.
that's the way. But as I tell the guys, like, you're not giving her anything to create. You're not giving her anything to submit to or work under.
Right, yeah,
kinda-
because I mean, who can follow a parked car? You know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
you just
yeah.
That's
parked
good.
in the
That's
garage
correct.
somewhere.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
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 That's good.
Good. That was a very good response.
Thank you.
Anything else that you wish you knew? You know, they say hindsight is always 20/20, right? That's what they say.
Yeah.
What else did I wish I knew?
I wish I would have known. I guess early on, as we mentioned in our last show, you know, I threw some fits here and there. And I guess over the years, what I've really kind of remembered, and I wish I really would have taken on what my dad told me a while back, was he said that loving your wife is like planting a seed. You know, you plant one seed, but you get a multitude of seeds in return. So like when you plant a bean, that's one seed, but you get a multitude of beans in return. And so he said, if you plant seed of love, you're going to get that in multiple forms. If you plant seed of hate, anger, discontent, you're going to get a multitude of that
Yeah,
back.
right.
You know?
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, that's good. That's very good, guys. So, if you had something to say to this new, generation, we're living in this age of millennials and a lot of, young people, and we're seeing where we have either they're not marrying until way later in life, or they're marrying really early. What would be some advice that you would offer them as to whenever they decide to marry, how to make it work and stick it out, stick through some of the challenges that we face in marriage?
I think one of the first things that I would say is slow down. Don't be in such a rush. We live in an age where everybody wants things fast, quick, kind of like that microwave thing that you
Yes.
talk about in church. And people should just, the younger generation should just kind of slow down and get to know who you are first. And introduce yourself into a marriage when you know that that you're whole and you're complete and you're ready to join a union with someone else.
That's good.
That's correct. I think that's very good too. We've talked to our girls about that too. Like we said, not necessarily waiting for someone to rescue you.
Sure.
You should have your own. You're not looking for him. He's
Right.
looking for you.
He's looking for you. That's
Yes.
correct.
So
Yeah.
in the meantime, you be sure you get your education and you become independent and learn how to take care of yourself.
That's
and like
right.
you said, learn who you are. And so that when he does find you, you have something to
Bring to
put
the
on the
table.
table
That's
as
right.
well. That's correct. I don't think I don't feel like marriage can fix things.
Right.
Can actually make it worse if
Right.
you're not ready
Right.
and you
Right.
both are immature. That is why children don't get married.
Right.
You know what
Correct.
I mean? You do have to have a level of maturity. So, and like he said, in this age, everything is quick, and people's attention spans are this long.
Yes.
And so,
As long as your Instagram feed.
that's correct. That's correct. That is correct. And so you do have to be persistent and be patient and realize you are dealing with another individual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a person.
Yeah.
It's
That's
not
good.
something that somebody. It's not an emoji.
Right.
It's not something that somebody drew up
Right.
on a sheet of paper. This
Right.
is a whole human being with emotions and feelings and thoughts and doubts and fears. And you just have to realize your role. Also, women having a huge amount of influence from way back when, And so realizing the power of that influence, how you can use it to make things better in your
Right,
marriage.
right.
Women can walk into a room and change the whole
That's
atmosphere.
correct. Absolutely
For the
correct.
good or the bad.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And so sometimes, you know, when we're being immature and petty, if you learn your spouse and you know their weaknesses, don't use that knowledge to poke the bear, so to speak.
That's right.
You know, that's not what you learned it for. You use it to help make things better.
Right.
You know, and so
I think being transparent to
being
something
transparent.
Yeah.
that I would say to the younger generation.
That's right.
You know, it's okay to be transparent. It's okay to be vulnerable.
That's right.
Yeah.
Especially when you know that you're connected with someone who has your best interest in mind.
Absolutely.
You know,
That's
Yeah.
I mean, that's when you want to be as transparent as possible.
That's great. And also being fiercely protective of your marriage also. You have so many avenues of connecting and contacting other people.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I think being fiercely protective and keeping what's inside, keep that inside.
Yeah.
And, you know, and also guarding your thoughts. You know, how they say with infidelity, things don't just happen. They
Right.
don't. It starts
Right.
with a thought.
It's a
And
process.
it's a
Yeah.
process. And, you know, you don't even have to meet anyone these days at a hotel or whatever for it to be infidelity.
Infidelity,
There
that's
is
right.
such a thing as emotional
Emotional,
infidelity.
yes,
And if
yes,
you are
yes.
preferring the company of someone else besides your husband, that's not good. No,
Yeah.
you have to check that. So you have to. Social media is a tool,
Yeah.
and so you have to use it as such.
Yeah.
And it can, if you're not using it the right way, it can be an issue in your
Yeah.
marriage.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just got to
Definitely
be
cause some damage.
absolutely.
Well, and so that kind of goes into another area that I want to briefly talk about,
Okay.
and we mentioned it at one of the things, the book that I mentioned last week. What is it? I forget the name. Keep Your Love On. Yeah, that's it. Keep Your Love On. But he talks about boundaries,
Boundaries.
and I think that's something that we have to talk about as a couple, as to where are we going to put boundaries. And there's different areas of your life has to have boundaries. So for our marriage, when it comes to our parents, where are those boundaries going to be drawn? Even when it comes to the kids, you know, where are, you know, how much influence, and so that's something that Tanya and I, we talk about a lot is, you know, where do we allow people, because, you know, people will come and try to say, oh, well, if I was you, or you know, talking negatively about, that's one about, you don't talk, I don't care who it is, I don't care if it's my mom, you don't talk negatively about my spouse.
Yes.
And I will stop.
That's
No,
right.
I don't want to.
Yes.
I don't want. That's a boundary that we have set up. You know, with our kids. You know, we love our kids, but we always tell them. I always tell. You know, she was my wife before I was your father.
That's right.
You know, and so you know, and we had a situation. You know, it's like we never. We always tell our girls, you know, I'm always on your mom's side.
Right.
So it doesn't matter. And it was funny this morning when, I don't even watch it. They're in the next room. But anyway, Bailey had some stuff in her room that wasn't, you know, right. And so I jokingly went in there and was like, you know, what's this on the floor or whatever? But she heard, she was like, what? You know, what, you know, I thought you said. So Bailey's like, Dad, please, please don't say anything, please. So I walked out and I walked in here and I was just like, and she looked at me, she's like, oh, she asked me something. I was just like, I think I was getting some yogurt or something.
Right.
I was like, this yogurt is so good. And she was like, oh, so nobody ain't gonna say nothing. But you know, she knew I was playing.
Yeah,
but you know, we make it a
yeah.
point to, we never take, you know,
We don't keep secrets. We
That's
don't,
Don't
you know,
keep secrets.
allow
That's
them to,
good.
you know, pit us against one another.
right.
Just like if I know, he knows. If he knows, I know.
Yes.
That's just how it is.
Right.
You know?
That's very important.
One other area I'll say, and we can move on, but what I've learned with boundaries is time boundaries. Because, man, there's so many things that are pulling you
Yes.
in so many different directions. And, you know, if I wanted to, if I allow people, I could be gone from my house every night of the week.
Right.
Whether that's church, whether that's social engagement, whether that's work, whether that's business opportunities, whatever.
Right.
I could literally be gone every night of the week, but I had to learn that I have to put some priorities and put some boundaries in my life.
That's right.
To say that, I can't not be here
Right.
all the time.
That's right.
So I have to, when people say, well, can you help or do, or, I'm like, no, I can't. And, I was talking with another friend of mine, and I was telling her, we were just talking about just doing the thing that God is putting you to do. And I told her, I said, one thing that God told me, it's like a lot of times we try to do, this is how he told me, he said, doing all the things will keep you from doing the thing.
Oh, that's so good.
A lot of times we try to do so much and be everything to everybody.
Right.
And you can't.
That's right.
You can't be everything to everybody.
That's
So sometimes
And it's okay to say no.
I've learned the gift to know.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I
Yes.
can't do. And you have to be, and everything that you say no to, sometimes it's good
It's all
things.
good
That's
stuff.
right.
Yeah.
It's not bad things. It's good things, and it's just like I just know I can't do it. So
That's great.
those boundaries, I think, that's something that every couple. And matter of fact, we talk to couples about that when we're doing premarital
Yeah,
counseling.
absolutely.
How much input is because you have some. You're talking about family of origin. You may have grown up where your parents they're involved in every decision that you've ever made.
Right.
Okay, so is that going to continue into your marriage?
Right.
And if it does, is your spouse okay with that?
Right.
So if your spouse may say, you know what, I welcome your parents' input, or they may say, no, I don't want. I don't want to know what your mom and your dad think. So
Right.
those are things that you have to talk about, before, or even if you're married now and you haven't done that. That's something
Right.
I
Begin
think.
setting those boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So next question that we have here for you guys is, what has been the greatest gift of being married?
Me to her. Without a doubt.
Automatic, immediate response. Confidence. Yes.
Did I skip a question, or that was that?
No, I think that was it. We
Okay.
probably skipped around a little.
For me, understanding what true love is supposed to feel like. That's been my greatest gift. She has really helped me to realize what real true love is supposed to be.
Okay.
And I'm not just saying that to sound all fluffy, but she's really helped me to understand. Okay, prioritize your time. Your kids need you. I need you. I come to realize that where I spend my time really indicates where my heart is.
Yeah.
Right. And so she's kind of helped me to see that, and just by showing me that. I didn't see that growing up. We all didn't. We just didn't see that growing up.
Right.
So that's been probably the biggest thing for me, and so that has allowed me then to kind of pass that on to my girls.
Yeah.
Just loving them the right way by
That's
giving
good.
them my time and
Yeah.
my undivided attention.
Yeah.
Not having them on my knee, but then having my attention split somewhere else.
Sure.
Yeah.
But just giving them all of myself.
Yeah, I always say that, if anything, your spouse is the person that really helps you to grow in the Word.
Yeah.
That's true.
Because it's so easy to be nice. I was talking to this one young man, he's like, the funny thing is, talking about him and his wife, the funny thing is, me and my mother-in-law get along better than me and my wife.
Oh.
Ain't that something? I was like, yeah, but she lives in California. That's why y'all get along.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because she's here like 3 times out of the year, right? So, but she's always, so
Right.
you talk about learning how to love and,
Yes.
that it's easy. Tanya always says this, it's easy to love people
Oh yeah.
out.
Right.
Because,
Right. Right.
it's easy to do. But when they're there all the time, constantly, every day, and they see the best of you and the worst of you, and that's where you really get a chance to grow in the Word, grow in love, grow in patience.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that's a one benefit. It's like, and I think that's why Paul said, I just choose to remain single, Because he understood. No, I'm just joking. I don't know why Paul said that. I don't know.
But the other thing, Glenn, is that I've learned that I don't need reasons like to love her.
That's so
when we
good.
first got married,
Yeah.
we would often sit down and go, so why do you love me?
Right.
You know, or so why do you like being with me? You know, and so to me that created like this bubble of conditions. You know, I love you because of this,
And that's not
I love
love.
you because of that.
That's
I love you because of
right.
that. You know, and then as soon as that little bubble's popped.
Then what?
Right.
You know, and is that love dissolved now?
Right.
You know, and so I've moved to a place to where I don't need reasons
That's good.
to love her.
That's
She
good.
doesn't need reasons to love me.
Yeah.
I hope, right?
I
But,
love how
but
he's checking.
you know
He's
what
like,
though? That's so good because when you really think about what love, when you really read love, 1 Corinthians 13,
That's right.
love does not have conditions.
Right.
And that's what I often try to live. It's like I often say that my love for Tanya has nothing to do with how she treats me.
Yeah.
And so people say, well, she treats me bad, or she doesn't. So what does that have to do with you loving her?
Yeah.
Because true love says, and that's when you look at Christ. You know, last time I ministered, I used this example. I said, you know, let's say if I was a known thief, and you knew that I was a thief, and everywhere I went, I was gonna steal something, and I needed a place to stay, and I went to you and said, Charles, you know, look, man, I'm out down on my luck. Can I come stay with you guys for a couple of months? And you knew, it's like, if I let Glenn in my house, I already know he's gonna steal something. I know he will.
Right.
Would you let me in? Most people would say no.
Right.
And I was like, well, that's what God did for us with
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
He knew we were gonna sin. He knew we were gonna break his heart. He knew we were gonna not live up to the call, but yet still Jesus still died for us.
That's right.
Even though he knew
That's
Right.
right.
that we were gonna do all these things to hurt him, right?
Right.
And that's what love is. Love has nothing to do with it. And a lot of times we say marriage is a covenant,
Yeah.
not a
Not a
contract.
contract.
Yeah.
And most people get married, it's a contract.
That's right.
If you do
That's
this,
right.
I'll love
Condition.
Yeah.
It's conditioned.
That's right.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
That's
Yeah.
right.
It's yeah, believe it or not, it's a one-way
you. It is.
it's a one-way phenomenon.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of like, you know,
Yeah.
I love you.
Yes.
You know,
right.
Yeah.
and I've made it. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's a passage in the Bible where there's a thief hanging on the cross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he could have stolen the nails out of Jesus.
Right.
And he's like, hey, remember me, and Jesus
Yeah.
took him in.
Yeah.
So it's not based on all of these conditions.
That's
or
right.
Right.
I love her because she says this, or I love her because she
Right.
says that, or I love her because she's beautiful, or I love her because of this. Now, I just love her.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
choose to love her
That's
and choose
the
to
thing.
express
Yes.
that love.
So
you know?
Uh-huh.
That's
It's
good.
it's that choice. It's
That
the
choice.
decision. It's not even so much the emotion that
That's
I made
right.
a decision that I'm
That's
going
right.
to love this person
That's
and be
right.
with this person for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
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 That's right.
And every day you make that choice.
Every day.
That's
you
right.
make that
You
That's
make that
correct.
choice. I'm gonna
That's
love her.
correct.
Yeah.
You know,
correct.
and
Bottom
that's
line.
it. You know.
And,
Yep.
and you can't leave me.
Yeah.
Right.
If you leaving me, I'm packing my bags and saying, where are we going?
It's gonna be me, you, and I heard one person that it'll be me, you, and the other guy. You know, like, what's up, bro? How you doing? Yeah, I'm here, man. You know.
What channel we watching? Butter on your popcorn?
Oh man. So,
That's good.
yeah, so I don't know.
I didn't-
Jen,
Jen,
did
you
you
didn't answer
want to
the
answer
question.
that? What's the greatest gift? What is it?
What's
The
the
greatest
greatest
gift
gift?
of being married.
I think he pretty much covered everything, but it is being able to learn and experience what true love is, that it's not suffocating, it's not dominating, it's not controlling. That's not what love is. He has, from having issues with growing up, he has allowed me the space to be an individual and not try to change who I was, who I am. And he's loved me in my best times, and he's loved me through my worst times.
Awesome.
And even when I needed, everybody has their own thing that they do or things to recharge.
Sure.
And sometimes I need a little personal space
Sure.
to just kind of sift through some stuff and get it all back right. And he allows me that time and space to just kind of have some moments to myself to
Yeah.
kind of, regroup and recharge.
Right.
Being a natural caretaker, I'm a nurse, sometimes, you are is this a work care taken out?
Right,
Like you are
right,
just
right.
you're
Yeah. I've
empty.
done
You
it
know,
all.
I've done it
Yeah.
all. And so sometimes I just need a few moments to myself to kind of regroup and recharge. And he allows me that and does not judge me for any of it.
Right.
And that is so important to just
Yeah.
love the person as who God made them to be, not some fictitious character you
Right.
make up in your
In your
mind,
head,
and you
yeah.
need to match that.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And another thing I think is important for us being together for this many years is that even though I'm the same person he married, I'm still kind of not. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Because we
yes,
have
that's good.
grown and
Yeah.
changed and been through
That's
some
right.
experiences. And so it's important to continue to grow together. And that's why it's so important to stay in touch because things change.
Things
how I
do
thought,
change.
how I think about things now is not how I thought about them 20 years
That's
ago.
correct.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
shouldn't be.
Nope.
You know, because
Exactly.
you take in new information
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
learn new things. And you
Now,
know.
I give her stress, but I be tracking it
Oh,
up.
It's okay, she a target.
Yeah, fine, yeah. That is awesome.
That's
That is
good.
awesome.
That's good. But we
Yeah.
talk about that all the time, that we have to give one another that room to grow.
Yeah.
That room
Actually,
to expand.
last week, well, was that show? Yeah, last week or week before last. That's the show was Grace to
The
Grow.
Grace to
The
Grow.
Grace to Grow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
giving each other space, space and grace.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
We often say, that everything changes, but everything remains the same.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's perfect.
It's
Yeah.
So true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true
That's
because
true.
we're just not the same people that we were
And
individually
we shouldn't be.
or
And you shouldn't be.
as a
no,
unit.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
That's
and
right.
if you are, then something's wrong.
Some people.
That's
What's
right.
wrong with that?
You got older,
Yeah.
but you didn't mature.
Exactly.
Right.
So, in closing this, we were, as we were talking about this, and I said, I was just thinking this. It's no mistake that oftentimes in the Word that the relationship of Christ to the church is compared to
Yeah.
a marriage.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's not a mistake. I know it's not a mistake.
Right.
Because that's when you talk about love, that's the way we, as a matter of fact, Paul said that. He said, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved
That's
the
right.
church and gave himself for her. So,
That's right.
so that's a lot of times I think, how would Christ love, or how is Christ loving me?
Yeah.
Or, if and I think I said this a couple of weeks ago, but I'll say it again. If when I make a mistake, I always think, or when Tanya makes a mistake, I always think, what if Christ responded to me the way I respond to her when I make a mistake?
That's good.
That's good.
We want the same grace that we are shown to be shown toward. We
That
want
is
to show
so
that towards
important.
Bob. So.
Yeah.
That's right.
So hopefully you got something out of that. This was another great show.
awesome.
We
So
probably
enjoyed
could do
y'all.
a month's worth of shows with you guys. We just love you guys so much. We got to hang out more, man. We got to.
It's
Most
been too
definitely.
long.
We do, yeah. We it's like people are kindred spirits. Like we. Like you, Jen, I don't know. We hadn't seen you, and I don't know. It's been
It's
years.
been years.
But we sit
Yeah.
down and
Like I just
talk.
saw you yesterday.
Yeah,
I know.
it's like
I know.
that's so amazing how that happened. So, just before we end, just tell the people, what you guys got going on, what you got coming up, how to reach out to you, how to contact you, all those things.
I don't know all the context.
Okay. So
That's why I sit with quiet.
I have it written down. That's how I remember.
yeah, so we are getting ready to launch. As a matter of fact, we've already launched our ministry. It's called I'm Bridging the Gap. You can reach out to us, ibridgingthegap.com. We're at our Bridging the Gap teaching ministry
Awesome.
on Instagram, and also iBridging the Gap on Facebook. And we're actually getting ready. Also, we're in the planning stages, as we talked about earlier, of launching a talk show. And as we mentioned last week, when we're ready to invite our first guest, our first couple,
We ready?
we'd be honored if you guys
ready.
would
so much
come and
fun.
share with us.
I'll send you my rider so you can make sure I have the teas that I like and the coffee. How I want the room temperature to be. No.
You want
No fans
M&Ms,
that tries out my vocal
yeah, all that stuff. My people will contact you.
That would be me.
We'll send the chopper to come.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, okay,
But,
awesome.
we really appreciate you guys having
Yeah.
us.
Oh man, this
We're
is
so
it's been-
grateful
it's
that
been
y'all
an
came
honor.
been
on.
a privilege.
Yeah.
We'll do it again. We're gonna do it again.
We should.
Yeah,
This is fun.
yeah. So, So as always, in wrapping up, we want to thank you guys for supporting the show.
Absolutely.
And, we're always overwhelmed for the comments.
I was telling them.
The comments, and I always say, this is we want to create a community of
Absolutely.
people doing life together, and just the Bible talks about that, bearing each other's burdens, growing together. So with that being said, always you can follow us at Marriage Matters 0526 on Instagram and Facebook. Always subscribe to the YouTube channel. What am I missing?
Make sure you click the bell on YouTube
Yeah.
so you are informed whenever we
Notifications.
post something new.
And also, I'll just say, send us questions. We love it when you guys send us questions, or if there's a show topic, something you want us to talk about. And if you do that, we should talk about it on the show. You will remain anonymous. We're not going to be telling your business to all the people, But you can reach out to us, info@marriagematterstous.com. Or you can send us a text message, 337-415-9535. And I'll just comment, send us a direct message on Facebook, or however you want to get in contact with us. All the ways you can get in contact with us, there's a lot of stuff you can do these days.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is Glenn and Tanya Coleman, along with
Charles and Jan Thomas.
and we're just reminding you that your
Marriage matters.
We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.